It's time for another What Would You Do Wednesday. Yaremchuk and Coomsy with you. And we have another hard-hitting question. Look at the finger pistols. Coomsy's fired up. Cam, the big question this week. The Oilers, 12-ish games left in the regular season. Looks like the playoffs might happen. And that has people wondering, which team is better? This year's Edmonton Oilers or the team from 16-17, which came within one game of making the conference finals? In another way, you could say, which team, or is this year's team, capable of being the best team in the Connor McDavid era? I'll start with a few numbers for you. Back in 16-17, through 70 games that season, that team had won 37 games. This year's team, through 70 games, had racked up 40 wins as well. Back in 16-17, that team finished with 247 goals for and 212 goals against. That was 8th in the league in both of those marks. This year's team currently ranks 6th in goals scored, but they're all the way down in 22nd in goals against. So I'll let you have the first crack at this. Which team is better, 16-17 or this season?
It's a tough question. I think if you had asked me 2 months ago, I would say it wasn't even a competition. We shouldn't even be having the conversation. The 2017 team's obviously significantly better. They were deeper. They had better goaltending. They were a team that won a playoff series for a reason, whereas 2 months ago, it didn't look like this team was even going to get in. But then in the Jay Woodcroft era, the Oilers have found a different gear. More players are contributing more. Jesse Puljujarvi looks better. Kyler Yamamoto looks better. They've also added Evander Kane. In my mind, I think the offense is deeper now than it used to be, and that's a pretty impressive thing, because that was the strength of the 16-17 team, is they had a bunch of scoring depth. But then you also see Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, they were a lot younger at that time, and now they're, veterans in the NHL, and they're significantly better than they used to be. So I think there are some problems. I don't know if the defense is quite as good on this year's team as it was in 16-17. I don't know if there's a pairing as good as Klefbom-Larson, and I'm not sure if the goaltending is quite as strong, but this team's offense is so much more potent just because of the maturity of McDavid, Draisaitl, and then you add a mature Puljujarvi, Evander Kane, Nugent Hopkins in his role where he's thriving. I think this year's team, I'm going to go with that. That's a tough one, but I think I'd go with that. I think this year's team is less likely to get shut down in a playoff series like the 16-17 team did by Anaheim.
And that's interesting, because I agree with you that this year's team, the offense is way better. They're way less likely to get shut down. You think back to 16-17, that was Leon Draisaitl's kind of coming out party, that series against the Anaheim Ducks. And now he's a bona fide superstar, a guy who you could have the conversation that he's already built up the resume to be a Hall of Famer in his career. But the big differences between these two teams comes between the pipes. And the Oilers do not have a goalie that they can trust. They do not have a goalie this year who they can rely on to even give them league average goaltending on a consistent basis. And when you go back to 16-17, look at Cam Talbot's numbers. In the regular season, he had a .239 goals against average and a .919 save percentage. He very easily could have won the Vezina Trophy that season. Then you flash forward to the playoffs as well. He had a .248 goals against average and a .924 save percentage. He pitched 2 shutouts in 2 series for the Edmonton Oilers. I look at Koskinen, I look at Smith. I don't view those as guys who are capable of putting up those kind of numbers in the playoffs. And yeah, this Oilers team could very easily score 3 to 4 games, even into the postseason. But they have goaltending that can very easily give up 4 or 5 a game. And for that reason, Cam, I think I go with the 16-17 team still, but I suppose time will tell.